Okay, hi, I'm Sean. So this is going to be Paranormal Investigations with Dark Cliff. So Dark Cliff is a paranormal research group and a social group. We're a place for like-minded individuals to come and discuss paranormal and go on investigations and do these kind of things. We also hold events like Katie was talking about where we do paranormal investigations that anybody can go to, come and kind of see what it's like to do that. So when we say paranormal, we're specifically focusing on the idea of ghosts, spirits, hauntings, that kind of stuff. There's obviously a large field for paranormal. We're just focusing there. An interesting note is a recent poll, I think it was from CNN and a few other guys, said that 48% of Americans believe in ghosts. That's almost half of America believing in these things that we don't really have any real proof of. And this field is extremely interesting to me, mostly because of all the different kind of sciences that go into it. We have physics, biology, geology, seismology, quantum physics, psychology, all these things come into play. It's definitely not a boring field to be in. So we're not Ghostbusters. We don't even call ourselves ghost hunters. Basically, we're paranormal researchers. So to jump right in, I have a video here I'm going to show next. It's from one of our investigations this last year in Tombstone. If hopefully we can see it with the lighting, take a look at it and see what you think. See if you see anything happen. So this is a pretty long video, so I might want to run all the way through. Does anybody see anything? Anything strange at all? No? Let me move on. This one is that video but sped up. No audio. Really quickly. See anything now?
There's light.
Light in the middle?
Oh yeah, there's a light. There's like a thing in the middle.
There's a window.
So we'll talk about that in a minute. So what is Dark Cliff? So Dark Cliff is, as I said, it's a social group for paranormal research. Every member brings their own kind of approach to this stuff. Not all of us have the same beliefs, and we kind of embrace those differences. We approach all things with an analytical point of view. So everybody has their beliefs, but as a group, we try to approach things as analytically as possible. We're not looking for evidence, but we're gathering data. And there's a pretty big difference there. It's just the idea of we're there just to capture as much as we can from a location and then analyze it later. We're not there hunting for a ghost or with that idea in mind. And obviously, this is a fun hobby. This is not our job. We don't make money doing this. This is just a fun thing to do. And if for some reason you need our Twitter or website, I'll show it later, but that's our info. So at every investigation, we gather quite a few different things. And this is some of the equipment that we use. So video, we use Sony IR camcorders, only Sony's just because they're the only guys that still do IR and camcorders. We also have a DVR system, which is basically a security system with cameras. All of those are IR cameras. We use an audio. The Zoom H2 is probably one of the ones we have the most. Yes, you have one back there. We also have the Zoom R16, a Zoom R or a Zoom H4 as well. We use audio recorders. So some groups will say they use voice recorders. The main difference is that a voice recorder is built to record your voice for notes. That's the purpose of it. An audio recorder is built to gather audio. So a voice recorder limits the sound, high pass and low pass band filters to try to hone in on your voice. We try not to do that just because we want to gather as much of the picture as we can. EMF stands for electromagnetic field, if you don't know what that is. There are theories, hypotheses in the community that ghosts or spirits use EMF fields to manifest. One of the theories, so we test it. Most importantly for us, though, we use EMF meters because EMF is kind of a strange thing. We're surrounded by it: Wi-Fi, cell phones, all these things, and EMF can cause some really interesting things to people. One, it can make you feel panic, dread. It can make you feel like somebody's watching you. It's that kind of standard thing if you're in a room and you feel like someone's watching you but no one's there. EMF can cause audio and or visual hallucinations. So it's kind of, there's a lot of interesting studies where they're, which I wouldn't do, but if you look on YouTube, you can find videos of people shooting EMFs at certain parts of your brain and people having these huge experiences, the God complex, where they feel like they're in the presence of God. And it's just kind of interesting. Temperature. We grab temperature. Again, there are theories out there that ghosts or spirits will grab the energy out of the air to manifest and therefore making the temperature lower. So we just log it. Flashlights, red flashlights. You can actually find these, I won't try to add your lights, but we use red because any other color affects your night vision. With red, it doesn't affect your night vision. Any other color, it takes about 15 minutes for your eyes to readjust to that, which is one reason I don't know why cars don't have everything in red, but anyway. And the sensor array. So the sensor array I'll show you here in a minute. The sensor array is something I started building. Well, I came up with the idea. Oh, here we go. I came up with the idea a few years ago, and here's a YGP with gangplank. I came up with this idea to do this stuff, and it took a lot of the people here at Gangplank to help me figure out how to do it. Through Arduino, through Original Heatsink Labs, and some of the guys here that are working with Arduino. So if it weren't for Gangplank, I wouldn't have been able to build this thing. But I built it because, like I said, we have EMF meters, we have temperature meters, but typically it's just a meter you hold in your hand and you walk around. So you have this big spike, it's this great big thing, and on a lot of the shows you see them freaking out about this big spike on their EMF. Well, that's great, but it's not anything I can show anybody else unless I have a video camera on it. I'm not logging that data. So I came up with that idea of, well, why aren't we logging all this stuff? Why aren't we having something that's just systematically taking, a reading as often as we can throughout the whole investigation? And then we can start comparing these results through each investigation and see, is there some sort of pattern that we're seeing? So I created this thing, logs lots of data. These are kind of the different things that it includes. Some of these it has on it right now, some of these it doesn't, and I'm adding. So we have GPS, time and location, mostly for just time, just to make sure that we're getting the most accurate time we can. The magnetometer, the DC Gauss meter. So Gauss is the EMF field, or it's one of the measurements. There's Gauss and Tesla. Gauss is what I just happen to use. So DC Gauss is actually testing a magnet. So a magnetometer is built as a compass. Your iPhone has one. It's literally just a compass. But you can also take that data and measure what's going on in the EMF field around you. MagCheck 95 sensor, this is an AC Gauss meter. So this is much more like what you would do to measure electrical interference from your electrical wiring, high voltage wires, things like that. It says over here 25 to 3,000 hertz because you can actually see within that field where you're hitting, what's the ranges. So through spectral analysis, you can actually see, okay, this is an obvious high voltage line or that kind of stuff, which is pretty interesting. And not a lot of people in our field use it for, mostly because the sensors are usually about $1,000. But magnetometer, accelerometer, gyroscope. This is something else you have for the pack you have in your iPhone. It's just to really, so your phone or our sensor array knows where it is. It knows what direction it's pointed. It knows if somebody picked it up. It knows if it just got turned around. So for me, not only logging that data, but just being able to know that this device never moved during the entire investigation. Because if it moves, it can throw off things. 2 thermometers with the humidity and a barometer. Again, this is just trying to gather as much data about the area surrounding the sensor. So humidity, barometer, the microphone, low-tech Gauss meter. So anybody know what EMF stands for? I'm sorry, not EMF. EVP stands for.
Electronic voice phenomena?
Yeah, electronic voice phenomena. So if you watch any of those paranormal shows, you've seen EVPs. It's basically these guys have, and the wires come here. These guys have they're audio recorders, and they record things, and they have voices that show up that weren't there when they did the recording. So I'm trying to see if the microphone, which everybody, I think most people know a microphone is just a little magnet that fluctuates with the sound waves. So I'm trying to see if that's being affected by somehow the GOS in the room or the EMF. So that's what we're doing there. And then everything data logs. So at an investigation, you have to always be objective. There's almost always a rational explanation for something. Steve, one of our members here, always says when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. It's just that thing of, there's probably some reason for this that is completely explainable. But people, depending upon their mindset, will a lot of the times go to these far-off explanations. You know, my air conditioning keeps coming on and it freezes and it breaks. Well, yeah, it's because it needs to be serviced. It's not because a ghost is there. So it happens a lot where people freak out about little things. You know, I see shadow people, and really it's just they put a mirror in a different place in their house, and when a car drives by, it makes a shadow. And you know, to them, this is something paranormal, and really it's very obvious. But you just have to have that kind of mindset. So really be objective. Again, we're not looking for evidence, but we're gathering data, and that's something anybody in this field should be doing. You should always log, note anomalies. This is like a car drove by the house. A firecracker went off in the distance. We heard the neighbors fighting. Whatever that is, we need to log it, because when you listen to the audio or the video later, all normal things can sound really strange in audio later. So you want to have at least a sense of what was going on. And obviously have fun. I mean, again, this is a hobby for us. We do this because we enjoy it, not because we get paid for it. So after the investigation, there's the review. And as I went over all the equipment, we have quite a lot of stuff to do. So the typical investigation is probably somewhere between 4 to 6 hours. There will be up to 6 different audio recorders running, up to 10 different video devices, and the sensor array. So that totals to about 102 hours for an investigation. That's video, audio that we have to go over. We try to do, if we can, 2 investigations a month. So that's 204 hours of things that need to be reviewed by a person. And we don't have a lot of people. We need like a team of 20 to do it. A lot of the shows you'll see, you know, the review is like a 2-minute segment of their entire show. And really, it's probably the most important thing we do. But it's overlooked quite a lot because it's not the most exciting thing in the world to watch 100-some-odd hours of video and audio and sometimes find nothing. But most of paranormal research is really in the review. So let's get back to that video I showed you a little bit earlier. A few people said they saw some things. So that was at a private location, or a private home, built in the late 1800s in southern Arizona. An interesting thing about that home is that there's no electricity. It's never been installed, it's never been updated. So it's still 1800s tech. There was a claim of a shadow figure on the side of the house where that window was. Anybody know what it was? You see anything in this? Pointing kind of right here. Now this is sped up because the normal video, you really don't see this. This is blocked off and you don't notice it, but you kind of see something hanging out right here. This is the window. Can everybody see that? Anyway, it starts off, you kind of see it light and then things go by. So,
It looks like something in the other room.
yeah, it was the window to the outside. So one of the things again, I said, you have to always be objective. There really usually is a reasonable explanation. When we first saw this, it was, oh wow, that's really cool. That was one of the claims. After a few hours of research, we realized, no, the house directly next door, their kitchen window was directly in line with that window that lined up with the video camera. So we had a perfect path through. So the light that was being blocked out was actually being blocked out in the neighbor's house in the kitchen window. So somebody had walked in front of it and was standing in front of it, probably doing something right at the sink, and that's what was happening. So it's one of these things of, you know, we really try to go find the real reasonable explanation, and again, some of the TV shows are a little bit as they need to be. They need to be dramatized because that's what they do. So, you know, you got to kind of try to find the reasonable thing. So going into EVPs, I discussed those before. Electronic voice phenomena. I'm going to have one for you to listen to. And this actually does have video, but it's at the same place, but the video doesn't really matter. Nothing happens in that. So it's the same place. There's 2 investigators in the building, one male, one female. And you hear a strange voice that they did not hear at the time. It's very hard to listen, or very hard to hear, so we'll see if I have it turned up. I think we have it turned up loud enough. But the other thing, too, is this house literally could fit in this space, the entire house. So these guys were not in this room, but they were in the room next door. So you'll hear it, but it's not that loud. Okay, that was a lot of stuff that it was hard to hear. So what you're listening for is Chris, female, says, do you want to go in the next room? You hear a guy say, sure. She says, okay. And then there's this strange voice, it kind of a descending pitch range. It's a lot higher than Chris's voice. You hear kind of some banging of them getting up. I don't remember. They say something else after that. He kind of says, yeah. And she says, all right. But within that, again, you hear the same kind of thing, kind of a descending noise. So it's a much higher pitched female voice. So we'll listen to it again. Yeah, it sounds kind of like somebody laughed. Can you hear that? Everybody can hear that? So we don't know what it is. I say questionable audio because it just doesn't make sense. I can't hear any words, or we certainly can't discern anything. But it's just interesting. It was these 2 guys, well, not him, but her and another guy in the house at the time. And it's, to me, obviously not them, but we don't know. We're not sure if maybe somebody walking by out front was being super loud. Or we didn't log anybody doing it, but it's just kind of interesting audio. Let's see. Oh, this is enhanced version. You might be able to hear it better here. So, it's just kind of interesting. I have one more for you. So this one is from a place called the Old Cachillo Bar in New Mexico. Little tiny, tiny town outside of Truth and Consequences, New Mexico. There's 2 investigators here, one male, one female, different people this time. Again, there's a strange female voice. It's really hard to understand what it says. There's a lot of different theories on what it says. I'm not going to tell you what I think it says because I don't want to taint you on that. That's one of the things that I guess we kind of believe. If you have somebody tell you what something says and then you hear it, your brain's going to automatically associate those words with it. It's just kind of one of those little kind of brain devices. So if you're watching any of those shows and they're about to show you some EVP where they put the words on the screen, close your eyes, listen first. Have a little bit more objective experience there, because most of the time they put that and you automatically go there, whereas if you don't know these words, then you'll go somewhere else. So it's interesting.
That is a pretty moon.
Did you know the moon used to be a lot closer?
So we hear someone saying that's a pretty moon, and then there's a voice that wasn't one of those 2. Then there's the guy after that. So I'll play it one more time. You can hear it, it's just hard to hear what it says.
That is a pretty moon.
Did you know the moon used to be a lot closer?
So it's interesting. And this one was in an old, late, I think mid to late 1800s, adobe, two-story adobe barn. Kind of interesting. The place where everybody in town used to run to when the Indians attacked, and I'm serious on that. It was fairly dilapidated, kind of falling down. So it was mostly outside. It obviously doesn't sound like an animal. It obviously sounds pretty close to the microphone, but I'm not sure what it is. So just kind of interesting. So questions, comments, anything?
So what did you think about it?
Well, I here told you. My wife hears something completely different. She says she thinks it's saying purdy. So I think each person kind of has. We can listen to it again if you want to.
That is a pretty moon.
Did you know the moon used to be a lot closer?
So
That wasn't her.
no, it wasn't her. Totally. There you go.
It's a hippie ghost.
It's a hippie ghost. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting.
What do you guys do with all this data? When you
So-
go out, are you commissioned to go out to places and report? What do you guys
The
do?
data meeting,
With all this
all the
reporting,
stuff.
what
So.
do you find, what-
So everything we go through, we keep, which is quite a lot of hard drive space. And we go through everything, and typically it's a client has asked us to come out and review or find out if what they think the claims are of the building is truly going on. So we'll go out there and try to kind of confirm, deny what they are saying is happening. Most of the time we're trying to show them that it's something explainable. And a lot of the times it is. Sometimes weird things happen that we don't have any explanation for whatsoever, and that's the interesting stuff. So in that, we just try to capture as much data on it as we can, ultimately to be able to start looking at each investigation together as a whole and start trying to find some patterns within that data. So with that sensory, that kind of helps us be able to gather that information from the location. So maybe we find, I don't know, that there's a slight rise in EMF every time somebody has a personal experience. Personal experience just meaning something weird happened to them personally. I don't know. Right now, the data is, we don't have enough to really start being able to see these patterns. I think it'll probably take us probably a year or two with enough investigations to really start being able to see patterns. So far, every time I've seen the EMF fluctuates quite a lot. That's fairly normal. Actually, the magnetic field of the Earth does fluctuate a lot. Something I didn't know before I even started doing this. But I don't know. It's kind of it's really a much more long-term goal of trying to really compare everything. So and find cool stuff. I mean, it's a lot of fun to do. Strange things happen. It's exhilarating when you're doing that. Your mind can play a lot of tricks on you in an old building that's it's 2 a.m. and there's no lights on, and I mean it's kind of interesting. So, any other? Yeah.
I was interested. How did you get into this field? I mean, did you
Sure.
have an experience or something, or did you just always been interested?
So I had some experiences when I was a little kid. I think it's fairly common in the field that somebody's had some experience somewhere to be into it. Although we have a newer member who actually has never had anything happen. She's just interested. But yeah, when I was, I was probably 8 to 10. When I was asleep or lying in my bed, the first time it happened, within my house where I was lying, you could see through the house all the way to where the entrance to the kitchen, and I saw what I assumed was my mother walk into the kitchen. I walked in there to check, ask for something, I'm sure, and nobody was there. I thought it was weird. I had it happen again later where the figure turned and looked at me for a while and then walked in, and I was weirded out beyond words at this point. Again, I was a kid. And that particular night, I remember the figure was kind of in black or dark colors. There wasn't a lot of light, it was pretty dark. And I went to check with my mom to see what was going on, and she was in like a different color, like a white nightgown or something. So it just freaked me out. So that happened a long time ago. The interesting thing that I've learned now through what we do is that the headboard of my bed was against the electrical box for the house. So on the exact opposite side of where I slept every night was the electrical box of the house. And we were having a lot of power problems at the time. There was some shorting going on with the main line in from the city, which my dad had to have the box replaced. So I don't know if that was really the reason why. I kind of now, as an adult looking back, think that was it, after I've kind of learned a lot about the field. But nevertheless, that's what happened, and that's kind of why I got into it. So.
Cool.
Previous thing that happened you cannot explain. Why don't we just...
Well, I did bring some extra video for that, but so again, I'm fairly skeptical about all of this stuff. I'm actually the most skeptical. I frustrate most of the guys in the group because I'm kind of a pain in the butt about it. I'm very skeptical. We were in Tombstone at a bar called Big Nose Kate's, and we were actually doing a, what was that? No, yeah, well, the first time was the Hannity show thing, but this wasn't the Hannity show. Well, it started there. So, long story short, the second investigation we did down there, I was really rude the first investigation. We were provoking. You guys know what I mean by provoking? Provoking is, well, what it sounds. It's being a jerk, assuming that you'll get some response. So at that particular location, well, side note is we do not, or try not to provoke very often. That particular location, that was the claim, was that if you were mean to the waitress or if you were insulting to the waitress there, that this guy would do stuff to you. If she was mad at somebody, then he would supposedly do something. That was their story. So we had her like cursing my name all day and stuff like that. Don't know, but so provoking, first time, had some interesting responses. Second time we came down, I was pushed 3 separate times. Well, yeah, pushed. Pushed when we were there before the investigation, pushed down later, and then the third one was pushed off a stool. And we actually caught video of that. So I can show you that.
Disgrace the Cowboys.
Yeah. So it's really hard to see. That was me. So let me try that again. Oops, not that one.
Disgrace the Cowboys.
See me on the far. So if this thing will let me do it.
Serious?
Yeah, I get really mad and start cussing. So, well, we censored it out because I had to do this on news. If you look, so you see me there, if you can all see that. If you look in slow motion, it's weird because you actually see my lower half move out from under me, and then I start falling. Can you guys see that? It's really hard to see. So in that slow motion, you see the lower half move. A little bit. Yeah, the stool doesn't move. So it's just, it was really weird. It was a very visceral experience. Certainly got my blood going. So yeah, the time before that was...
Disgrace the Cowboys.
That was one of the other guys. Scared the crap out of the people with me. But yeah, it was interesting. How do I turn that off? Sweet. That's probably the most frightening experience I've had. I don't understand it at all. Like I said, I really feel like just a lot of the times has to do with EMF fields and things like that, and kind of messing with your brain. And I don't really know how an EMF field makes me fall down. I'm not a small guy. On that particular case, I know I didn't trip, I was sitting. So it was weird. But when it happened, I felt like somebody had pushed me kind of in the lower back, and then I was on the floor. So, and it pissed me off a lot. It pissed me off because that was the third time that night. First time was minor. The second time, literally, I don't know if I tripped or what, and we don't have video of it, but I face planted. And you guys were there.
From where you were standing. Yeah.
What?
2 feet away from where you had been standing.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird. So, I don't know. That's one of the few investigations that I have no explanation for what happened to me at all. It weirded me out quite a lot. So we haven't been back since. Or I haven't been back since. So not that I'm not going to go back, but I just haven't yet. So any other questions? Cool.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Sean.